I have to admit, though, I was a little inspired, on the humanity fighting insurmountable odds level when you said that both sides broke the treaty, because that leaves us with the implication that we're capable of not letting them take us.
Well, I sat up on the table in the middle of my abduction, and that's why they took me to the side and found out who I was and how I could do this, because humans have an off switch. It is genetically implanted in us that we can be shut off, and then they come grab us and take us into their little ship and do the study, and then they put us back, and we've got this time loss, and we wake up and we spend 15, 20 minutes to a half hour reconstituting our hard drive, and we wake up, and then the next day you have the worst hangover you've ever experienced in your entire life, and you have absolutely no memory of how that occurred. Now, I only noticed that I had been placed back on the ground because half of my body was wet, and it was only one side of me, because I was laid down in a moist place where the upper half stayed dry. And that's where I first noticed. And then I started talking to my friends who were with me during this. There were 4 of us when this occurred. And I don't talk about this often, but yeah, and I knew that there was something wrong. And then we got back to our campsite, and my friend, who is a pyro, he had so much wood stacked up on. We had a bonfire, which is how they found us in the first place.
Yeah.
And then when we got back to that fireplace, there was only ash. So that meant that at least 3 hours had gone by. So we knew, but we couldn't put a pin to it. If you're missing time, and if something strange has happened, and they don't use doors, they don't have to do that. They can take entire neighborhoods down and study you. So if you think you're going to fight them, there's no real way to, unless you're genetically inclined not to be affected, which is the coming of the upgrades of the human race, because only some of us will be allowed to evolve out, whereas the other planets still need their workforce to continue factory planet Earth for the commodities.
It's so daunting, to think that we've, I mean, me, I'm a skeptic, Samuel, but, to suspend...
It rips you a new one, doesn't it?
Yeah, to suspend my disbelief and put myself in this world where I am not only a slave for tens of thousands of years at least, because every 3,600 years, but that I also have an off switch. It is incredibly daunting to think that you could ever get out of under that thumb.
Right, and that is, it's one of those moments where when you realize that, you have to go back down to your core values and wonder if you want to continue on this grand expedition. But the view that ET sees it from is that we're lucky that we exist at all. Otherwise, we would not. We're a blend of multiple races put together along with the human ape, and we are not the first version in this civilization to exist to do what we're doing. This has been going on for over 300,000 years, just in the management change alone. And those, of course, are the people who are in the Texas Cube. And the Empire got here prior to the planet so they could supervise and shock and amaze the G7 countries so that they would follow through with the tribute of the gods, which is all laid out in this big, long process plan, and why the gold prices went up in comparison to supply and demand, which it used to be around $300 and some odd an ounce, and then now it's fluctuating between $1,600 and $1,800 an ounce. And that way they get all the gold out of everybody's little jewelry boxes for their junk gold, scrap gold, and they don't have to. They already own Earth. And yes, it's daunting. And many a time I've sat here and went, why am I doing this? And yet the drive in me says, I'm never going to quit. I'm going to make sure that because back then in 1980, I felt so strongly that people had the right to know. And I believe if they would have informed us back then, we'd literally be the Jetsons by now, because we would have been forced to change, forced to evolve and change our behavior and our societal patterns, and then to be inclusive for the right ways and not this monetary greed.
Right, that makes sense.
This thing has taken us over where we've allowed these corporations and all the rich 1% to take over everything, and the rest of us no longer have even enough money to fight it from day one. which is an example. We're going to the stores with our money and we can't even buy food right now. So guys, it might be too late. And if this does happen where we break down, we've got a responsibility to remain calm up to a point toward our fellow man and realize that the enemy is not the guy next door. The enemy is up there, but yet we can't fight them. So that in itself is a lost cause. And the only way that we're going to get through this is through mediation and sitting here and having conferences and working our way out through by the enlightened intellectuals who can broker a deal with the powers that be above that look down upon us and treat us as animals. And that also boils down to the prime directive. If you come towards an alien, and the prime directive is every being has the opportunity and right to be where they are unmolested. If you attack them, they have the right to treat you like an animal, and their tech will outweigh ours every day of the week.
There was something inspiring that you said last time in this potentially daunting situation, is that there are factions out there and that there might be people who are on the side of us moving on to the next level. And it seems like that's our hope.
Like us. They believe in us. And they're separate. They're part of the Federation, but they're not, the Anunnaki or the beings that live on these 2 planets or 3 planets in the Nibiru system. I'm told there's 2 to 3 races there. I don't have all the facts. That is a conjecture thing. And I try not to promote stuff I don't have the information to back up. But what I was told is that the Pleiadians are on our sides. They're like the ASPCA for humans. They like us. They believe in us. They believe that we should be furthered in our race. We should be allowed to evolve up and out. But it's the same thing where we talked before, where your cousin Larry, the alcoholic, is not necessarily the one we want to invite to the birthday party. So they're waiting for these people to evolve up to a state of tolerance where they can actually invite us to live with them. And I'm also told that after this cycle, we may be sharing this planet with other races. So we have to not be violent about this. We have to be not angry and aggressive, even though, I mean, it's daunting and scary, and there's a lot of reason to complain and fight back, etc. But if you see an alien in the woods after the crap hits the fan, and you actually see them rather than in their cloaking technology, because everybody can look up military cloth, Invisicloth, because it exists, it's real. We have the technology. They cloak tanks and everything. If you see an alien, don't shoot first until he starts shooting at you first, and then shoot back. But the diplomacy is huge. We are not going to beat them through force. We're only going to beat them by proving to them that we earned this.
Right. Yeah, it's so contrary to human nature, though.
It is. It truly is. Well, innately,
to be put in the place of an animal and be expected to prove that you're not, where we're all so entitled and we expect ourselves to be treated as not an animal out of the gate.
And our greed is genetically inclined to us. We are supposed to go out and search this gold. That is, if you've ever panned for gold and you find a nugget at 8 o'clock in the morning, you will not realize that it went past dinner time while you're still searching, and you'll have more energy than you ever knew you could possibly muster. And then you look back and you wonder, how did I just move that mountain of dirt? It's innately embedded in our DNA to look for gold.
That's why we're here. I cannot wait to tell my wife that, because her dad, throughout all of her upbringing, was panning for gold in their backyard and suburbs and like everything. He was like addicted to panning for gold.
And once you find it, you get this vibe. It's gold fever is quite real. I myself up here in Montana, we have gold, and we have the flake and placer gold, and occasionally you find the nugget, depending on what part of the state you're in. And that, of course, is a vein. Now, when the tectonic plates break up, and every cycle they have to, because the tectonic plates crashing together with quartz crystals release this electricity, and it's like a welding process. And gold is the slag between the welding process of these tectonic plates. It's this formed, if you've ever welded and you tap off after when you're done welding, there's this little flake that falls off. And that is what gold is. It is created through electrical discharge at huge, huge electrical, almost plasmatic states. Now, a lot of people think about plasma. Plasma only exists in space and near the sun. Otherwise, it's too hot and we burn up our atmosphere. People get that straight. But it's almost plasma-like state where it welds. And so the 3,654-year cycle has to occur because the tectonic plates have to move. They have to rub against each other, discharge electrically. Same thing happens in volcanoes. Why the lightning and all the sparks? It's an electrical discharge, not gravitational. We live in an electrical universe. And that gold is created from the welding of tectonic plates.
I see. So that's the factory.
Right. Earth is the gold factory, amongst other commodities that we provide for them as well.
Welcome to the radio, Wasteland. Welcome to the radio.